Good day, everybody. Good morning to our friends in the US. Very excited to welcome you to our Summer Enablement webinar today with Vizlib. We'll give it 1-2 minutes more to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to join. We still see people that are joining, and I see a lot of familiar faces. As always, very, very excited, especially our friends from New Jersey. Yeah, if you give us 1 minute, then we'll get started very, very soon. For those of you who are not aware, I'm just going to say I am continuing to speak, so you can make sure that you can set up your audio correctly. And I think we are fine. All right, so with the majority of the registered attendees having joined the call, yeah, I would like to kick off this webinar today. Don't be afraid, it will be recorded. A link will be sent to you and to everybody else who couldn't make it, and we will upload a recording of the session to our YouTube channel day after tomorrow. For those of you who are attending this webinar for the first time, be aware that you can listen in and you can at any time ask a question. And they have my team online who are answering your questions in either live, and maybe at the end when we have some time, I'll try to cover some of them for everybody else as well. So with this, I'll get started directly with a little bit the agenda for today. The agenda is pretty similar with any other enablement and webinar that we do. The purpose is to keep you updated, give you the latest news around Vizlib, but more importantly, show you the major and the most important feature releases we've done, new capabilities, always presented and showcased with a couple of examples, and then also cover some of the stuff that is imminently on the roadmap that will be released in the next couple of months. And of course, at the very end, when we have time, we also cover some questions, which I think most of you will be interested to listening. And yeah, and we do this quite regularly for those of you attending for the first time, so you're definitely not missing out. So getting started with Vizlib News, I always like to cover these aspects because, you know, we're more than just a product. We're a company behind the product. We're passionate people. We're trying to improve our offering. We're trying to help you, everybody who's on the calls, to become more data-driven and to realize the full value of the data that you're effectively analyzing using our extensions. So one big news that I wanted to kind of share with you, for those of you who have already been following us a little bit, we have now kind of rebranded a little bit our product family, as you can see now on this screen. The majority of our customers have known us for the Vizlib Library, which is effectively the dashboarding tool, the tables, everything that you need to create a guided analytics experience for your users and to develop nice looking apps. But we also acquired the Climber extensions packages, and we got onboarded their team back in March. So the Climber self-service extension bundle and the Climber Finance Report were quite predominantly known, and what we've done is we have rebranded them under the Vizlib flag to help you effectively cater to more use cases, right? So the Vizlib self-service package is now focusing more and more heavily on the exploration aspect of data. The finance report, the Vizlib Finance Report is focusing on reporting, the P&L reporting, balance sheets, and one new product that we have released in July is the Vizlib collaboration tool that brings people and data together by allowing you to comment, converse directly where the data is. So this is where.
Please share your screen.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Yusta. So yeah, this is the branded new branded products that are available for you to explore, to download, to test. And if you are a customer of one, you can easily trial another one. And generally, there's almost always a use case for one of the solutions that we have on offer. So that has changed. We've rebranded ourselves a little bit, so we're a multi-product company. But aside from that, also very, very excited to share we had our very first company meeting this August, and we brought everybody together from the US, from Poland, from London, and from Stockholm, from Sweden, actually, to Poland. And we effectively have today, as we speak, 35 employees that are working for Vizlib. So a very, very great growth trajectory. A lot of people have joined us this year, 24 actually I counted. And at this point, I'd like to thank all of our customers who've been with us from the beginning, who helped us grow Vizlib, who believed in our product, and eventually we are now doing what we can to reinvest and to improve the experience even more so. So a very exciting journey, and yeah, I'd like to share this picture that we took together. So Vizlib is definitely growing, and we're not stopping here. We have even more growth plans, so please be with us, follow the journey, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be an interesting one for both sides. Aside from that, we also have made some key hires, one of which I'm very, very excited to introduce to you today. For most of you, he's a familiar face because he doesn't come from too far away. Joe Warbington, who joined us in August as a Senior Director for Industry Solution. So he's also here on the call. So I'm handing over to you, Joe, to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Martin. I'm not sure if my webcam's coming through, but let's see. If folks aren't familiar with me, I spent a few years at an analytics company. You may have heard of them before. And I have my new Vizlib shirt, so I'm all decked out, ready to go, working on some new stuff and solutions for the team so that we can take all of the great visualizations and put them in the language of the industries that you all work in as our customers. So I wanted to share a little bit here. Let me find my share my screen button. We should see Qlik Sense.
Yep.
Let me move that around. There we go. And really, my origin story for Vizlib is a couple years old. I've been watching the company for a while now, and chatting with Martin and David and Pierce for a number of years, and was using their technology to work on my own health, actually through an Apple Health app that I showed a couple months ago as part of a webinar when I was at Qlik. And that really got the juices flowing of what else I can do with the visual side of Qlik. And so I've only been less than a month in now, and have started working on some things. You may have seen some stuff around the HHS, the wall of shame. And this was a really fun one to work on very quickly, just to see what I could do with this data from the government. And this is around breached data for healthcare information. So your personal records could get leaked through a company, and this has to get reported to the government if 500 or more people are affected. And thought, well, I'd known this data for a couple of years, but what about 2019? Who's the worst offender? And you know, the chart shows us what's happening, how many records might be impacted here. And using that information, we can see some things. Let's go full screen so we can see that. Get GoToMeeting out of the way if I can. And I really like the annotations that I was able to put on here because I was forgetting what these spikes were. So there was a breach. The responsible entity in this case was Optum 360, but that isn't the biggest case overall if we go back, that really big spike in Indiana. So it's a really interesting way for you as an individual to see potentially if your records have been leaked, if you work with a certain health organization, you're a patient of theirs, or maybe it's one of your payers, you have Blue Cross Blue Shield from a particular state, you can dig in. They say don't mess with Texas, and we're going to mess with Texas here and see what's happened. They're actually pretty good compared to many other states, but that could just be that there's not as many health systems based in Texas or payers. So really interesting way just to browse all this data that's updated on a daily basis from the government, but it's all in CSV or TSV format. So it's really hard to figure out, well, what's actually going on? Are there more peaks and troughs? And so I think in about 30 minutes, I put this together with Vizlib. And building these types of things, I think, can be useful for you all to see. And then I also get to work on a lot of fun stuff as well. using our visualizations in this case to map some of my maybe most tasty drinks, a whiskey flavor map. And it's a work in progress, but you may have seen infographics like this before that help you to pick a particular drink of your choice. And using the scatter chart, I can now change the background and really have a very tuned infographic-like visualization. So I'm having lots of fun. I still have a lot of work to do and catch up with all of you all. And I'll be around if you have any questions.
Cool. Amazing, Joe. I'm very, very excited. I think from our perspective, we're building all those amazing features and we're showcasing features, but you're actually putting them to use. So I think that's, yeah, really looking forward to what you have up on your sleeves and what you're going to be posting in the next couple of months. So thank you for a brief introduction. Everybody else, you know, if you want to, if you're a customer of ours, if you want to have a little bit of a, bouncing of ideas with Joe, don't hesitate, reach out to us. We can jump on a call. You know, it's not just always, technical support, but, also sharing of ideas where we want to help you guys make the most out of Vizlib. So my screen should be shared. So yeah, I should be fine to continue.
That's good.
One other thing I wanted to share with you guys is that last half of the year we had the Connections event, which was a very big event. We met most of you in person, but this is not stopping. We now have the Data Revolution Tour coming up this fall. And as a matter of fact, we are attending nearly every single event that there is, both in the US and in Europe. So just for your information, these are the next stops that either myself or Joe or somebody else from the team will be attending, some from Moscow, St. Petersburg, Chicago, Toronto, in London, UK, of course, where our headquarters are, but also Italy, Warbington, Washington. So if you guys are near one of those cities and you'd like to meet up or you'd like to invite us, even, anybody from Qlik who just like to meet up for a beer, we're more than happy to, meet you, talk about Vizlib, talk about Qlik, about data. And from that perspective, please give us a shout. We're basically, going on a tour, and we'd like to meet as many of you as we can in person. So, by the way, question was asked, these slides will be shared, and as I just mentioned, a recording of this will be uploaded on YouTube. So, going forward now to the interesting part of this webinar. So, one thing that we always one big positive thing of Vizlib is that we're continuously innovating, we're constantly releasing new features, capabilities. But the downside of being very, very agile, we soon realize, is that people see that there's so much thing happening, they don't manage to keep up. And that's one of the purposes why we do this webinar, to make sure to give you at least the gist, at least a summary of the highlights and the features of the last couple of months in this particular case. So starting with one new addition to the Vizlib family is the Vizlib Mekko Chart that we released roughly about a month ago. We had this on our visualization roadmap for quite a while, so it's included part of the Vizlib Library, so it's free to download for those of you who are subscribed to it. And it's a visualization that resembles a bar chart. However, the key differentiator here is that it allows you to also change the width based on the dimension. So effectively, you can not only see the split of the quantities in relative, but also the magnitude displayed in the width of the object. So it's actually very, very easy to create and very, very easy to add. All you need to do is add 2 dimensions. So one here, I have the months, and then I have the regions here as a second dimension. And the beautiful thing is you can then filter and see how, the market share, for example, changes, but also the quantities and the volume of sales of products in this particular case. And as always, it's a Vizlib chart, so you'll have lots of control around formatting, settings, changing the axis horizontally, you name it. And if there's anything missing on that aspect, we're more than happy to include this. One also interesting aspect is the fact that you can color code the measure, so you can almost translate your Mekko chart into a heat map in this particular case. So all very, very powerful, and it yeah, it's part of the Vizlib Library bundle now and free to download for those of you who are subscribed to it. So please give it a spin, and as always, would love to see what you can create with this. And please do not hesitate to share back with us. So continuing now on, another interesting aspect is the Vizlib KPI Designer. So we released the KPI Designer roughly a year ago, and we didn't expect the success it would have, but it generally picked up. A lot of people were using it to kind of create their cockpit dashboards, the headliners, and especially the layering system has been very, very successful. Even to the extent that people were almost exclusively using the KPI Designer by itself on the screen. So as our continuous commitment to improve our library, we listen to feedback we get, so we have evolved a little bit and added some new features to this. So what you can do now is when you add and make sure you download the latest version of the KPI Designer, but you'll have the ability to now drag the KPI Designer on the screen and add layers. And so far you only had 8 layers, but we've now recently added 2 new ones, the pie chart and the master item. And I'll come to that in a second. For those of you who have never seen the KPI Designer, it's a brilliant extension that allows you, almost like in PowerPoint, to very, very easily create mini dashboards, I would say, that kind of summarizes key information, in a very compact way. So you can add a key metric, you can add an icon next to it, and then step by step, summarize what kind of constitutes your main KPI for a particular metric or context. Now, aside from existing layers, we now have also a pie chart, right? So you'll be able to position a pie chart to nicely visualize a split of quantities. So I'll just mock up something perhaps much more chill. So yeah, so you can then see perhaps how the split of the KPI is and how that is changing. And don't forget, one of the key elements always of our KPI Designer is that you can then attach each single layers to actions, right? So if somebody clicks on the pie chart, you can then, prompt it with a selection. You can use it as a navigation element. So really, really powerful. And yeah, the pie chart is now available, and it has been developed using Qlik's very own Picasso. So thank you very much for that, Qlik. Now, another key element has always been, well, people want to get more out of the KPI, right? They want to be able to add their own visualizations, their tables, almost nearly everything that they can think of, buttons, a filter. And we were kind of hesitant at the beginning, but then ultimately there was so much demand that we said, all right, you have now absolute freedom to do whatever you want with the KPI, because you can now add master items to it. So just to give you an example use case here. So what we have, and I've created this here, is we have 2 master items on the screen. One is a native waterfall chart. That is a standard Qlik visualization, right? So nothing specific to Vizlib. And then we have also an activity gauge here. And perhaps, yeah, no, that's fine for now. So what we can do here is, let's say that is my waterfall chart, but it'll never change massively. So I always have that empty space in the middle. I want to be able to take advantage of that to show something a little bit more neatly organized. So what I can do now is I can use a KPI Designer and add the waterfall to it. So all I got to do is pick now the master item option and then click here and choose and select the waterfall chart. And basically I've just taken that object and I've added it here. And now I can, of course, resize it as much as I want, right? Full flexibility. And then as a next step is I can add another master item, which is my activity gauge. Sorry, apologies for the misspelling. Here we go, right? And then I can put this right in the middle. So effectively, I can create some much more visual kind of charts. And, this is fully responsive, right, as well. So you don't have to worry too much about if you want to resize to different screens. And then you can start adding more information to it, such as, for example, a text information. Let's bring in, for example, 2.4 million. And then I'll resize this because this is going to become my main metric that I want to put in the middle here. So I'll put it here. So you see, you can almost rebuild any kind of almost PowerPoint presentation or kind of very visually appealing presentation of a chart, and step by step create something much more sophisticated that you perhaps need for a certain project. So that's the idea of a KPI object, and with a master item layer. And if you build it very nice, you can have, for example, this case here. So with this, please do explore this. At the same time, I'd kindly like to ask everybody not to abuse this, right? If you use too many master items, if you overlay too many objects, there may be a degrade in performance. So you always need to, apply some common sense here. But overlaying objects has always been one thing that was never possible in Qlik Sense, but the KPI designer has brought effectively back to the table. So that's now available for you. Please do explore it, and yeah, share us some really, really cool designs if you can. Now, with this, also one key thing to kind of highlight here is performance. So we do actively work on performance improvements now more than ever across our library, but more importantly on the KPI designer, especially as you have more and more layers, the impact get noticeable, and we are very, very positive we will get some significant improvements achieved. We already have achieved some, but more are on the way. And again, our standard is very quick, snappy, no waiting times, and until we get there, we will not rest. So continuing to more other things is Vizlib Table and Pivot Table. So these are actually one of the most used objects that our customers are deploying for very common reasons. Tabular reporting is needed, is wanted. Formatting is a very valuable thing. So we continued by introducing some more functionality to it, especially on the Vizlib table. So what we can do now is, and I'm kind of covering a couple of features that have been available for some time, but it's always good to kind of reiterate them. So what you can do with a Vizlib table is you always have the ability to, instead of adding a dimension one by one here on the right-hand side now, column by column, we have introduced a wizard that is effectively scanning the whole data model. You can see which tables you've loaded, Vizlib tables, and it allows you very, very easily to create a table or even add multiple metrics at once in one go, right? So it's almost like a data exploration tool, but very often that's what you need if you want to quickly create a table. So the wizard is already available, but the key element here is I create a table, wonderful. Now, what I can do here is I'll have the ability to now change a preset, right? So you have here the possibility to choose one of available styles, and I think I've showcased that already, and very soon you will be available to create your very own preset. But for example, I can choose red here or your own very own formatting very soon, and what we've now introduced is that you can finally export this to a formatted output, to an XLSX format. So that is now available. No changes. Sorry, let me try that again. I think I had Excel open and it got confused. Brilliant. Right, so you can now create an outputted format of the Vizlib table. So that's actually quite new. That was available in our pivot table for a while, but now we've also introduced that feature capability into our Vizlib table. Another very key element is also, and the more people use the table, you see how many requirements are coming and how detailed they can become. And sometimes they're really, really good ideas. So for example, here, if I look at this table example, I have a lot of rows which are repeating themselves, right? Drink, for example, the basket item CR 1001. And what one of our customers wanted, and we eventually liked it, and we decided, let's do this, is the ability to merge the cells for a more presentational look of the table. So you have now in the table settings the ability to enable merge. So if you click this now, you see that everything that is the same row is kind of concatenated together, right? So a much more cleaner outlook. And the beautiful thing is, of course, even this one here, if you export this to Excel, the merging of cells is also preserved in this particular case. So I need to do a selection first. Oops, apologies for that. Let me narrow down the data. Actually, oh no, here it is. It has just been produced. So if I open Excel, it will now hopefully return to me. Yes, exactly. So the format is exactly how you see it on the screen. It's consistent. So effectively, that's a new feature that, yeah, please do explore it if you find this useful. Now, one thing I want to highlight, because I know some of you guys are using this quite extensively, is that the formatted output has a limit. It has a limit because we are producing the output on our end. So it's not recommended to create a formatted output for more, let's say, than, I don't know, 10,000 or 20,000 rows in this particular case. You always have the possibility to export to CSV using the native Qlik Sense exporting mechanism, but I'll give you an unformatted output. Unfortunately, that's a limitation we have to live with, at least for a while, and but I still hope that this will not stop you from using the Vizlib table feature investment in your case. Another beautiful thing that we have, maybe let's open, yeah, here we are. So it's also on the pivot table, we've also kind of refined the printing, so the formatted output. So if I come in here and, for example, I choose now the Vizlib table, and this is, by the way, an example app that is available to you to download and to play around with if you want to see how we replicated this. But very, very often what you want to do is, if you make an export, you want to have the ability to also capture the selections that have been made, right? That may not be reflected in a particular pivot table dimension. So we can segment description, perhaps even sales reps. I'll select a couple of those. Now, if I export this table here, either as a CSV, but as a formatted output, as a matter of fact, I always want to see, all right, what has been selected. And that's something that we have now introduced and added. So when you're now exporting a pivot table, and that's an option, you'll be able to export the title and the current selections as well to ensure that you keep the context of whatever data you're taking out of Qlik Sense. So really, really powerful. Also a feature, I think, that was available in QlikView. I'm not sure anymore, but definitely requested by a lot of you. So that is now available in the pivot table and will very soon also be released on the table. It's already, I think, developed. It's generally in the pipeline to be released in the next week or so. So very exciting. Last part, and then we'll move over perhaps to some more interesting charts and features, is also the horizontal scroll bar. So very often, sometimes people have dates on the y-axis. And one thing that we have now introduced is when you go to the appearance section, or sorry, the table settings, you can now decide at which point the pivot table starts. Is it at the beginning or at the end, right? And by this, you can put a default that it will always be scrolled to the very, very right. Depending again on use case, but that was also a very frequently requested feature that we have ultimately implemented for you. So yeah, that's been, aside from a couple of stability improvements, this has been the key features we have released in a month or so. And so please do explore them. And if you have more ideas, please share them with us. We're actually very, very actively working on it and continue to work on these most popular extensions. So continuing to another interesting extension we released. So we are apparently in release mode, releasing new objects. So in this particular case, we've released a Vizlib line object. Now, I'll kind of want to set down or manage expectations. It's not a very comprehensive object. It's not there to visualize data, but it can help, for example, sometimes to organize your sheet and to bring some structure in your Qlik Sense app. So, and it didn't take us many days to develop it, but we felt, that it will actually might help a lot of people. So what I'll do is I'll quickly open a dashboard. Right here. Right, so very often you have a sheet where you have different kind of visualizations that are segmented or around a certain context or a certain topic. So for example, in margin, we have a KPI, a pie chart, and a line chart. Then we have sales, and then we have sales against budget. And sometimes you just want to kind of organize it a little bit more neater. So what we can do now is we can improve the dashboard by creating a little bit of space here, one by one. Let me do that. Here we are. And then ultimately, once I've done this, I can come here and then use a Vizlib line object that'll help you to organize the space perhaps in a more efficient way. So all you got to do is just add this and then you get it there. So nothing big or particular, but it can become very valuable, you know, for those little details that sometimes are so important to take off, even if they're not very important, right? So you can have perhaps a little bit more organized dashboard. Really nice. And for those of you who've never seen this, at the top, that is the Vizlib sheet menu. So it completely allows you to overhaul and modify your navigation of your Qlik Sense app and make it look almost like a mashup or like a website. On this particular one as well, actually, while I'm at it, what we added is we have a side menu here, and the side menu allows you to add also navigation elements on the Vizlib sheet menu, or even filters that allow you to set global filters across your app, right? So it's almost like that burger menu that appears from the right-hand side whenever you want it. Now, the beautiful thing is you can now actually control this a little bit better. So if you go to the setting, to the appearance section in the side menu settings, you can now change the position from right to left. So it can now expand it from the left side. And as a matter of fact, you also now have the ability to always show it and make it fixed. So you can now enable it. So basically, you can always have on the left-hand side your global filters across the whole dashboard as people are navigating it. So there's also a tiny feature that I'm very happy that I covered. So yeah, that's the lines object. Do explore it. Sometimes it can be useful, but you know, it's a control component to help you with the dashboarding experience. It's not going to be here to kind of change the way you communicate data. So another tool, another technology, and I'm actually now presenting to you Vizlib Collaboration because it has been released. It is now available to trial, now available to explore. For those of you who have never used it or hear collaboration for the very first time, it's a tool that sits outside of the Vizlib library. And the goal of this tool is to allow you to converse and create conversations directly where the data is. So this was, for example, a dashboard, which is your standard use case where you analyze the data and you have insights, you make selections. But very often when you want to share the insights, that's where the whole flow is interrupted. So that's why we introduce collaboration. And collaboration is effectively an extension that attaches a conversation on the sheet. Here you are on the right-hand side, either on the sheet on the right-hand side where you can have a conversation around the data, or you can even have a conversation directly on an object level. And the beautiful thing is that the comments and the conversations are always tied to your selection. So you can see here Jonathan Israel text a comment, you can click this and you see what he was talking about, right? And you can also share the comments and basically leave some notes there for somebody else to find them. Really powerful, but also simple and a very simple use case. So to explore it, and what I wanted to do is also show you how simple it is actually to install. So this is not a very difficult extension. All you got to do is come into the user portal that most of you are familiar with. And over here, you'll see our 4 product lines on the left-hand side. So you can come and go to the collaboration extension, go to the download section, you get a welcome message, and then you can download it. So just as any other extension, basically, you can just download it, then you have to very simply import it to your QMC, just as if you imported anything else. Right, and then basically it's already installed. And then all you have to do is you have to go to your hub where you have your apps and go to any dashboard that you have developed. So let's say, for example, consumer sales here, and go to any sheet that you like to use collaboration on. Now, for example, I can look at the KPI consumer sales dashboard that I think most of you already have, or that comes basically as a default installation. Now, on the left-hand side, you will look for collaboration, and voila, I've just installed it, and all you got to do is drag it on the screen. And don't be afraid, it's not taking up any space. It's loading and will effectively disappear again and then appear as a tiny icon on the right-hand side. And then that's it. You see every single object here on the screen now has a tiny chat icon, and poof, you can go in here and start conversing, right? That's how easy it is. It doesn't take 2-3 minutes to explore this. So please do download it, see if you find a use case. And for those of you who are more interested in the technical implementation behind it, it's very important that we have an online version where we host the comments on the cloud, right? That's the plug and play version that I've just showcased to you. But at the same time, we also have an enterprise ready collaboration version where we install effectively the solution on your server, on your Qlik Sense server, and then you have all the comments, everything installed locally. And that is actually has also added security levels and support selections and shared bookmarks. And that is actually on its way to be released in the next month or so. Some customers are already beta testing us with us and have onboarded, but we will launch it more officially in about a month's time with a lot of documentation around this. So very, very interesting. Do explore it. We're very, very excited about this. We got a lot of good feedback over connections, and yeah, let's now see how much people will use it in that particular case. So taking this further, we also released the advanced analytics capabilities. I know I've been showcasing them for a while now in a couple of webinars, but it's now live. It's now available for you to download. And the good news is that this is included in the Vizlib Library subscription. No added packages. So all you got to do is download the Vizlib line chart extension, and what you will have if you go into our individual objects, you will have on the line chart a forecasting capability. So all you got to do is if you go into the chart, you will see here that this is a native one and this is a Vizlib chart below. You'll have the ability to go into these settings, and on the right hand side you'll have an advanced analytics tab, and you can switch it off or you can switch it on to do some forecasting. And then you can also define the periods of forecasting. If you want to have a year, you include 12. Sorry, no, here we are. So you can define exactly, what a period is, how many periods you want to train against, and all these after. You have to play a little bit around with the variables here to make sure that it fits on top of your data. But if you do, it can be a very powerful, very quick solution to do some basic forecasting directly with Qlik Sense with no coding required, right? So that is now available, and you can use it on one measure or multiple measures. So we already started implementing this with a couple of added or increased more complex use cases. So it's actually very versatile. And yeah, as I mentioned, included, integrated, and all you got to do is activate the switch, and there you go. You can use forecasting on top of your line chart. Same also on the scatter chart. So we have introduced clustering, and clustering is basically a way to look at your scatter chart and then segment the data that is distributed there into different visual or logical segments. So if I look, for example, at this example here, we have a couple of patterns and shapes that are very, very distinct. And very easily, I can see them with the eye, but imagine they were a little bit more scattered and not so easy to distinguish. So what I can do now is I can go into the advanced analytics section, and I can click on this and enable effectively clustering. So you see those shapes are now taking on a different color. I'm actually ignoring some values because they're deemed as noise, insignificant part of the observation. And you can come in here and make selections, right? So you can analyze the clusters, make a selection, and then continue drilling down. So that's actually a very, very powerful capability. You can also choose what kind of clustering algorithm you want to use. Sometimes maybe k-means is the most viable one. So if you come in here, you can decide how many clusters you want to see, 3, 4. As a matter of fact, you can also create some really nice looking cluster area groups, right, based on the legend coloring. So coming back here, you can actually use this on top of your data and then start exploring. I'm looking at one cluster. and then I drill down, it gets reclustered again. So basically almost like an exploratory way to use advanced analytics on top of your data and bring it back to what I just mentioned on the forecast included as part of your Vizlib Library subscription. All you have to do is activate forecasting there, clustering on the advanced analytics tab, poof, and there you go. To explore it, our old customers have already asked a couple of questions. So there is material on our community on how to set up the various variables, but it can be very, very powerful, as I said. And again, takes your Qlik Sense experience even further in that particular case. And yeah, so wonderful capabilities. Really, really happy that we managed to release it in time, actually, and that some customers are already successfully using it. But today's webinar is not just about what we have been doing, but also about what will be done on or what is coming in the near future. So coming soon. So I'll try to focus a little bit on the stuff that is kind of imminent and really happening. So one thing I'm really, really excited to show you is Viz in Tooltip. So a lot of you know that we have a very advanced Tooltip functionality on our charts. You have the ability to add HTML, multiple measures, but very often you want to add more. You want to have the ability to add almost a chart, almost a KPI object on top of the Tooltip. And as a matter of fact, this is a very popular feature in Tableau. And we've done our own R&D on this particular capability, and we thought, well, how about we just do it as well? R&D, rip off and duplicate. So the beauty of Tableau, but the power of Qlik. So I'm going to move over and show you something that is highly unstable because it's still in development, but it should show you a little bit where we're going to and how this is going to look like. And I think this is going to be generally a game-changing experience. So what we have, let's go here. Let's see if that is already active and working. So we have a perfect. So this is a standard bar chart that you guys can use. It has a standard tooltip, which is nothing special. It just shows the underlying metric of whatever is being shown here. Now what we'll be able to do is we want to show a little bit more complex information around canned products, around snack foods, and a better story behind that particular bar beyond just the underlying metric. So if I go to the next step, all I have to do is to start designing a tooltip, right? I can design here a product group, a title. I can give it, put in a bar chart or a pie chart now, even a master item, and then perhaps some metrics here that you can step-by-step use. So if I come in here and I add the linked visualization, just to kind of prove that this is not fake, I can add perhaps an icon here on the top that I can put, next to the metric perhaps, and then, color it green. It doesn't matter, but you can design your KPI design tooltip however you want, right? Effectively, it's the KPI designer that sits underneath it. Now, once I'm happy with it and I like the design, or perhaps I don't, let me refresh it a little bit. Sorry about that. Let's put it here. I can now go back to my currently the bar chart, and in the interactivity section, I will very soon have the ability to use the Tooltip Designer. And all I've got to do with the Tooltip Designer is switch this on, and then I can go and choose from one of the available KPIs that I've created. In this particular case, the KPI Tooltip Test. I click on Done, and that's it. I can now hover over an individual value, such as snack foods, and you see here that I can see the tooltip for every single bar that I'm hovering over. Not only the tooltip, but you see that it's assuming the product group, it's filtering the whole bar chart, and it's also adding the key metrics. So it's basically updating the underlying metric with whatever is you're currently hovering over. So that is something we've been working on, currently conceptually available on the bar chart, and we're definitely improving the performance to make it much faster. It's currently just focusing a little bit on the design implementation, but that tooltip, Viz in Tooltip capability will be made available and rolled out across the whole Vizlib library. So effectively, imagine a Vizlib table where you hover over a single value and you get effectively a mini chart hovered on top of it. Very excited about this, and please stay tuned. And yeah, this is a mini project that we've been working on for the past month or so. So stay tuned when we announce it, hopefully in beginning of October. And with this, yeah, so that's the next big thing that we're working on. Custom preset has been on our roadmap, and I've been showcasing that for a while now for a couple of you. The key element here is we have started rolling out more and more the preset capability across our visualization. So we now have presets on the Vizlib table. I've just showcased that to you earlier. We have presets, and that's when we started on the Vizlib KPI Designer. So as a small reminder, when you come in here, you can of course either design the KPI from scratch or use a top-down approach by choosing one of the available presets here. Now, that's all good and great, but maybe you will want to create your own preset and save it and store it and share with the rest of the team. Now, that's what we're also working on, and it has been delayed a little bit because I have been putting more focus on performance improvements, but that is still on the roadmap, and hopefully September is the latest date that I got from the team, and that will be also very, very exciting capability on top of our Vizlib extensions. Last bit is, where are we heading? What are we doing, right? Are we just keep continuing releasing features, capabilities? So we kind of sat down a little bit, management ourselves, and, we kind of figure out, well, where do we want to go? What do we want to do? And one big commitment that I'd like to share with you is that we will do Qlik. We will stay on Qlik. That is our strategy. And we will continue developing new added capabilities, new products on top of the Qlik Sense platform. So as of today, we have only 4 solutions available: the collaboration, finance pack, self-service, and the Vizlib Library. But then over the next kind of 18 months, we're targeting to build mashup builder, so an easy way to build and deploy mashup solutions using also Vizlib objects in this particular case on top of Qlik. We're looking to create a Vizlib Gantt chart, a write-back or a write-up solution. Alerting, we're also looking at this as well. But in essence, we will always focus on Qlik Sense, and we will try to effectively navigate the customer value chain and hopefully develop as many solutions as we can to tick off any requirement that you have on top on your Qlik Sense deployment. So we truly will become a value add. We will release value added products. So with this, of course, we would like to have you included in this and ask you back what you think should be next, what is important. Of course, that is one of our key differentiators, I feel, is that we always have been customer driven. And so currently there's a poll, I think, yes, that I would like you to participate, to share your views, to share your thoughts. None of this is a commitment that we will actually do this. It's just we want to. We're very, very excited. We have a lot of ideas. And of course, we want to make sure that whatever we develop is something that can be of value to you. So currently the poll is running. We're collecting responses. Roughly 40 people who have already voted, 40%, sorry. It's now increasing. Let's give it 1 more minute, and then we will be able to actually share the results. Brilliant. Fantastic. So currently the results are being shared. So we see alerting, write-back, and a mashup builder, highly contested. So I think there is a lot of appetite on those solutions, and quite frankly, we see it as well. So thank you very much for participating. We will definitely let that result influence our decision, and then we'll continue innovating as much as we can. However, at the same time, focusing more and more on quality and performance. We've definitely changed a little bit the priorities here, but if we can, we will of course release as much as we can of those new products that we have on our minds. So with this, that's it really from my side. Thank you very much for listening in, for participating in the poll. I hope it was insightful. I hope it was really, really interesting to you what we've added, you know, our speed of innovation, but also what else is coming, especially on the Viz and tooltips, and especially also the custom presets. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of open the round to questions, and I'll try to pick some of them and answer them for everybody else. I think that'll be an interesting conversations. So before I do that, I'd like to also share with you two key elements. Questions that we get a lot is how do we raise feature requests, right? What's the process around it? Now, of course, you can always send us an email, but what we'd like to do is we'd like to encourage you to go to our discussion forums that we have. And over here, you have a feature request section. So you see here there are a lot of feature requests that are coming in. We're evaluating them, but the big benefit that you will have is to have the ability to upvote them. So if you see something that's interesting, there's always here a capability to come at the bottom and then like the idea, so you can upvote this. And of course, we're looking at this, right? The more an idea is being liked, the more customers are kind of like coming together to push for something, the more we're kind of inclined to, of course, release it, right? And then at the same time, you see which ones are planned, which ones are implemented, in progress, so you can get a little bit an update of where things are and where things are going. The same also, if you want to be notified when new releases are coming, go to the What's New section. There's a tiny button at the top left where you can follow the forum. If you follow the forum, you'll get an update whenever we release something which has a really, really nice summary of either bug fixes, improvements, or new features and capabilities as they're being made available. So please, yeah, do follow us and do raise feature requests in forum and do read them, comment, converse, and have a discussion and upvote the ones that you like. So with this, I'm now looking at the questions. We have actually plenty of them. So I'll try to pick one that might be interesting to a lot. Brilliant. So one question is, you know, I got good feedback on the mashup builder on the radar. So thank you for that. The reason being is we see that a lot of people like the customizability, the flexibility, and the presentation of a mashup. However, developing one requires web development, and maintaining that is another big challenge. The question that's being asked if we're looking at creating or developing alternatives to end printing. And we get this request a lot. I'm pretty sure if we developed an end printing alternative, we would, you know, sell a lot of it now, but it's always kind of a balance, right? We don't necessarily want to release products that are competing head to head with Qlik solutions. I'd rather have Qlik be pressured into improving them and adding new capabilities to it. Now, and that's a little bit what the case is with end printing. We could, of course, spend a year working on it, but you know, what if Qlik just adds these features? Then, you know, this whole proposition of us developing it and selling it then goes away. So I'd rather have Qlik improve end printing rather than us building an alternative. So at the moment, it's not on our radar, even though I understand printing is a very, very important and needed capability. And I've seen some solutions which are much better than end printing themselves, especially when exporting to PowerPoint and including the data as well. It's actually very valuable, but I hope that the end printing team will put this on their roadmap. And one question is, are the Climber objects going to be migrated to Vizlib? And the answer to this is no. Coming back to the presentation I've just shared, they serve a different purpose. And that's a little bit what we see more and more happening, is that the Vizlib library is more focusing on dashboarding, designed for pixel-perfect dashboards, right? So the guided analytics experience, whereas the Climber extensions have been more focused on the exploration aspect. these are different use cases. So from that perspective, we'd like to keep it separate because we have actually a lot of customers who only like to use extensions for the exploration aspect. Others who only want to forget analytics. A lot of them both, right? But very, very often it's an either or. And from that perspective, to make sure that we cater to them much more specifically, we decided to keep it separate. And I think that's the best solution for the market at this stage. And we see this also being positively received. Another aspect question is if we would ever consider providing an API access to Vizlib objects. And that's quite interesting. So one thing that we'll definitely not do is not open source our objects. And the reason we don't want to open source our objects is because they become a nightmare or very, very difficult to maintain, right? So if we gave you our code, you would start modifying it, it will be impossible for us to modify it. And then the whole value proposition of providing support and a high quality code and maintain, so you do not have to code, kind of goes away. Now, whether we'll be providing an API, that's a good question. We need to see where exactly there is demand. We might consider opening and providing an API, for example, for collaboration. So you can start posting comments to our collaboration service. So you can build your own kind of collaboration interface. But as of today, we're still too young, I think, to be building APIs. I don't think the market needs that yet, but that's always something that is, you know, on the map as we're growing, and we're growing very, very fast. Okay, so looking at question. Right, one question, and that's a very good one, is what is the modeling technique used for forecasting in the line chart? And the answer to this is what we're using is a Winters exponential smoothing. So what you can do, and we're trying to promote more and more of the community, and we'll definitely redesign it a little bit, become more user-friendly. But you have the ability here to come to our community and then say, look, I want to look at forecasting. If you click on forecasting, you see here that there's actually a whole article around it, how to create forecasting, what it's used for, and then of course at the very end, what's the model that's being used. So you see here exact references, and then also, you know, some further reading material if you want to get to this, and then, you know, what the various models are that we use and what the difference is between them. But so we have plenty of documentation here. Please do explore this. All you got to do is come in here and search for a keyword. Or another option that you have is use the chatbot here to say, hey, I want to work around forecasting, and then effectively the chatbot will try to find the best article for you. And it's currently in beta. Oh, my bad. Okay, and if it cannot help you, I'm testing myself. If chatbot cannot help you, allow you at least to create a ticket where, of course, we will then help you to answer. Oh, actually here. I did find it, model on forecasting. So here it is. Here's all the solution to it. It actually did help. So please do explore it as well. So yeah, conscious of time, we're nearing the end. Please, I think most of your questions have been answered. If not, do reach out to support. Do look at our community. We have lots of articles, a lot of solutions, a lot of best practices. We'll be focusing a lot on YouTube videos as well. It was a pleasure to have you all attend and listen to the webinar. As I mentioned at the beginning as well, you know, if you want to have a catch up, an enablement session, you know, if you're a Vizlib customer, you want to speak to us in a more kind of bi-directional way, please do send us an invitation. We'd always love to speak to you. And with this, I thank you very much for your attendance. The video and the slides will be shared. So you'll receive a link that you can then circulate with your team. Thank you for your attendance, and see you next time. Till then, thank you very much.